Recording.
Okay, so welcome everyone to the tutorial today. We're having a look at Starbase from the perspective of the small player. My name is Victor, and I'm a little bit more formal now because we are recording this for YouTube, so everyone knows. And yeah, I think the reason, first off, why we are doing this is there has been a lot of talk lately about, for example, about whales and what they are earning, and the small players are struggling, and who's to blame. And we thought it might be a good idea just focus on the small player now and see what is possible. And to be honest, I mean, I'm certainly not a whale, but I'm probably also not a small player. However, we will define that in a moment. But me having a closer look now at the possibilities, so I realized additional problems that I was not aware of. So I'm also learning as we go here. And yeah, so we will have a look today at the different game loops that are out there. I have some general things to say at the beginning, and then we go through all the different possibilities and see if we find some interesting stuff. Of course, we will find something, but it's probably or maybe not what you would have expected. So I think this could be interesting. It's also probably suitable for medium or large players, but I'm really focusing now the data is for the small players. And if you know me, I'm not talking today about yeah, UE5 or racing. I do blockchain analytics and I look at economic data, and so that is what we are doing today. So it's all about the question: how can a small player, yeah, make a profit here in this game ID that we're playing right now? Okay, so let's have a look. I created a dashboard so we can follow that right along, and I will share it with you here. Um, so, so here we go. We have some general things, as I said. So we will follow these guidelines a little bit. So we are first of all, of course, it's important, or maybe first thing, how we define small players here. What I did, I really want to have the barrier very low. So the first batch or budget that we are looking at is $200. So maybe this is already for some players a little high. But we were talking about it in our cantina, in our server, and some said a small player is up to 1,000. Maybe that's a stretch, and already medium players. So what we are focusing on is a budget of $200 and budget of $500, and sometimes we will have a look at a little bit higher budgets also to have a comparison here. So that is what we define as a small player today. And so we will look for the profitable game play loops. What is really essential, so those are already some results from the research that we did. You get that right at the beginning, but we can always come back and remember these guidelines. So it is really essential for a small player that we reduce the number of transactions, because the Solana fees are fixed costs, and for the small player, this is really yeah, this really cuts into the revenue that you're making. For larger players, that is not so important, but yeah, it's really important for the small player. Because of that, we will only use automation if it's applicable, because if you would use automation for everything, then you are already having a problem, because automation in general is producing a lot of transactions. And we will see that for some game play loops, this is not profitable. So we shouldn't do that, actually. Yeah. And the last thing I wanted to mention at the beginning is that we should always, this is true for every player size, we should compound our returns. I think that is really important. Just very small on a financial topic here, but if you, for example, if we have that budget of $200 and we are looking, for example, at a return of 50 cents a day, then this is around 91% return yield per year. And if you would compound that on a daily basis, that would be 148%. So that's quite a difference. But what is really essential is that you don't need to compound daily, and actually that wouldn't be advisable again, because you're producing a lot of transactions. So if you would just do that weekly, then you would still reach, instead of 148%, you would reach 144%. And if we even reduce this further to a monthly compound, then it's still 138%. So this is just an example to show you there's no need to compound daily. I would say, if we look at those numbers, if you compound monthly, then that's totally fine. Important is that you do this, so that you increase your yield in this example from 91% to 138%. And that means if we look at the game loops, and I take mining for example now, is that we shouldn't mine a resource that we hold in our stockpile. I mean, for some strategic reasons, we can do that. But if we do that, then we are not compounding, of course. So, so this is then a stockpile. You could call it dead capital. It's not working for you anymore. So in general, we will look at game loops where we actually sell the assets we are producing or crafting, in order to invest more on the next day, and be able to compound that way. So some people are, for example, they are mining and crafting fuel, and then they are keeping that fuel as a stockpile. And for a strategic reason, this could be a good idea for later gameplay that you have a stockpile of fuel. But for compound reasons, and we are really looking, as a small player, every percent is important that you earn here. So so actually we're looking at things where we can sell the returns and compound them. Yeah.
Hey, Victor, sorry, you're taking questions? Or should we wait till the end?
No, I'm taking questions, and I will stop after each game loop. But if there are already some questions, and I want to look at the chat here also, then of course we can do that. But there is none. But go ahead.
It's from me. Sorry. I guess coming down to it, when you say compounding, you basically mean going to buy another ship with your returns and then using that ship to mine. Because there's no other way to actually compound this. Is that right?
Yes, if you're talking about scanning or mining, then this is correct. If we're talking about crafting, then this would actually mean also buy another cruise, so another extra small ship. And because we will see buying more ingredients, or to have more assets available to craft from is actually not increasing your speed. So yeah, in the end, you're right. It's always compounding into ships. So another reason would be if we have a return of $0.50 a day, then we couldn't even compound that on a daily basis. And we would at least have to wait for 2 weeks to be able to buy an extra small ship, and better probably to wait for a month and buy two of them, for example.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, I was just
Yeah,
thinking that because for small players, as you were talking about compounding daily or even weekly, better to do it
yeah,
monthly because of the APR. But really, it's you're compounding when you can get the next ship.
exactly. Yeah, yeah,
Awesome. Thanks.
100% right. Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, okay. So we will also look at a couple of tools here. So I just put them here. And by the way, this is, and also the dashboards are one of the tools here, but I'm on our gameplay analytics dashboard. I can put in the chat, and we have it in the description later on. And I'm on the tab, and there's a new tab here, small player tutorial. So that is where we are right now, and where all the dashboards are. We will look at a lot of tables today, but bear with me, and I hope it's still entertaining for you to look at that much data. Yeah. But here are the tools. So the first one is from AFIA, from the website, the missing manual, because there's a lot of information here. So if you want, for example, want to go into scanning, then of course you should be aware what scanning is all about, and it's actually pretty cool if you go there, and yeah, it's quite not long. What's the word? It's a detailed version here. So for all the topics, you will find something, and if we scroll down, I think chapter 9 is then scanning, and yeah, here, for example. And if you don't know, for example, what information density is all about, because it's important for scanning, then you can read it up in the menu. Yeah.
Sorry, El Guapo.
And
I might have to mute you, man. Oh, sorry. Maybe Funcracker mute El Guapo.
yeah, okay, now it
No,
seems like
it's got back
it's
to Julia.
no problem.
Oh, good.
Yeah, okay. Um, okay, great. And I wanted to also, before we go to the first loop here, gameplay loop, we can have a look at the dashboard from Steven, actually, because that is again showing the problem that I was talking about. He's looking at the different ducks here, so we know AFIA is in the first line, but you can actually look at every duck and look at what is the median core earnings. So this is not the average, with, which would give you a kind of wrong number, because if you're having really large players in your sample here, then the average can still be quite high, but the median is actually showing you better what the yeah, I don't want to say average player, but what the normal player, the median player, is actually earning. And what you can see here, this is the percentage return on VWAP, and so this is not 6%. It is actually 0.06%. So the median player is actually very low, and it's almost zero. And if you look at the max is 23%, and the min is minus 27. So we see this is really averaging out against zero. So a lot of players are actually losing money. And to some degree, we would expect that, because if the game is sustainable and not only giving out incentives to everyone, then we would expect that to some degree. But I also think that to some degree this is due to the fact that people sometimes even don't realize that they are actually losing some money. And if you're gaining maybe some Atlas, but on the other side you're losing Solana in your wallet because of all the transactions, then yeah, maybe you need to take a closer look, or it takes some time until you realize that. Yeah. Okay, so now let's dive into the gameplay loops. So the first one is scanning, and what we are doing to compare the different results for scanning is actually that we are looking at what we call STU fleets. So the optimum or the perfect fleet for scanning is what we call the 100 STU fleet. We have another dashboard that is going around that topic, and there we are just looking at the 100 STU fleet. But the 100 STU fleet means you're building a fleet from one ship that is in total getting 100 STUs for a successful scan. So I'm not going into the details much about what is scanning. Please go to the missing manual to read it up. So we jump right in. Yeah. So this would be the perfect fleet, 100 STU. But what we see is that this is not an option actually for a small player, because here we see the fleet values. So this is ranked by scanning return on investment. So you see the best reward would be the Thimble Buyer's Herb with 74% annual return on your investment. That means on your fleet value, but your fleet value is $1,000. And if you scroll further down, there is no, all the fleets are around $1,000 or even higher, because we are building fleets to compare them that are all finding the same reward, and but they have a different investment. But for us now, one group that we're looking at is the 20 STU fleet and then the 50. And if we're looking at the 20, then we see that, and this is again ranked by return on investment, then we see that there's only one fleet actually that is positive in this group, and that is the Opal Ray Farm. And this again, it is a 20 SCU fleet, but this fleet, because the Opal Ray Farm costs you 410, so it is not actually exactly in the budget. But it's the only fleet that is actually profitable for those small fleet values. So we see right away, and maybe for an explanation, so what we are looking here, this is the Atlas net profit per day, this is the profit margin, and this is the return. And we see that if we include all the fees that you're paying, so you're paying for well, actually the Ray Farm is not paying any food for when it scans, but it will pay the Solana transaction fees for every transaction, of course. And because of that, and the transaction fee is a fixed cost, that is quite important here. So so for the Solana fee, it's no difference if you have one Ray Farm in your fleet, or two or three. So it's still the same amount that you're paying in Sol. So yeah, so maybe we keep this short. It simply isn't profitable for this budget. Yeah. And even if we look at the next one, we can see the 50 STU fleet. So those are fleets that are 500 and a little bit above as a budget. And we see this is way better. So now there's the scan return on investment is 54%. So that is, I would say, already quite a good return. But it is, again, it is a 500 USD budget. So in general, I would say, and we already looked at the 100 STU. So in general, I would say scanning in the current game ID is actually not a good game loop for small players. There's no way around it because the percentage that you're paying for the Solana transaction fee is way higher than what you are earning for most of the ships if you're really looking at the small budget. So there's no way for you to turn this into a profit. No matter what ship you are using, and so even it doesn't make any difference if you're using the data runners, because the food, the percentage that you pay for food is way less than what you are paying for the Solana transactions. Yeah. So that is actually everything, because the result is not very promising. So that is why I didn't want to spend more time on it. It's I think it's very important for a small player to really focus. Actually, it's important for everyone, but to really focus on the game loops that are profitable, and scanning is not the one right now. So maybe this will change. Of course, it was different in Sage Labs. Maybe we will see some changes, but not for now. So are there any questions regarding scanning? Maybe one thing I can mention here, if you look at those other columns, those are the profits. If we look at this 100 SCU fleet, those are the profits that if you send this exact fleet for mining hydrogen at the Central Space Station, then those are the profits that you're earning with this fleet mining hydrogen. So this is the Atlas per day. So you see, if you send a fleet of 10 buyers ERP, if you send them for scanning, they are earning 565 Atlas a day. And if you send them for mining hydrogen and selling the hydrogen, then they are earning 300 Atlas a day. Yeah. And maybe also one point, I go to the other dashboard and to ship data, because there we have also the table from Chipto. So to just mention one more fact about scanning, and that is, if we go, so here we have all the ships, and if we go to the right, then you remember also from the Google Sheet from Chipto, then you see the STUs per successful scan. So, you know, an air bike, for example, is getting 1 STU, and you see this, unfortunately, I always have to go left and right. The Visa Solo is getting 1.02. But what is important to mention here, that this is actually not happening on the blockchain, because STUs are not dividable. There are no decimals. So the Visa Solo will also just find 1 STU if it is successful. And what is interesting, if you're using 100 Visa Solos, then you could expect maybe then you find 102. But that's also not the case. You're still just getting 100. So that is quite important, because that is why I knew that if we look for the ERP here, for example, and the ERP gets 9.53, but what we are actually getting is 10. Yeah, so that is why I think, for example, the ERP is quite interesting. And if we go back to our table, and yeah, we're not talking small players here, so I have to continue. But the ERP is actually one of the best scanning ships right now, because of course we know that the Chi and especially the Ray farm, and where's the O-pod? Is it on the first table even, or is it? It looks to be on the second. Here's the ATS enforcer, and I think I missed it. Bup, 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 bup. I'm blind.
Good.
Not finding it. But never mind. Um, so we know there are better ships for scanning because they are not using any food for scanning. But what is essential here, because we are not looking at the, oh, we can simply just sort it, and then we also don't see the visas output. Because it's the price is above 1,000 dollars, and I have included for the 100 STU fleet ships above 1,000. That's why it is missing here. But again, we see the Ray farm would be the best efficiency because it's not using any food for scanning, but it's not the best return because it's a pretty expensive ship. So it's on place 15 actually, compared to the ERP that has lower profit margins, but in the end higher returns because the price is in relation to the STU that it's finding better than the Ray farm. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I think that's everything I had to say about scanning. Now, let me have a look. Sorry about okay. Yeah, El
Before we
Guapo,
go
no
on, I've got
problem.
a questions, please.
Yeah, sure. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
So I want to clarify just here. When you say scanning, you mean obviously like in the 100 SU fleet, we have a Finball biosphere going from the CSS all the way into high risk zone and then coming all back. Is that like the scanning loop that you're describing here?
Yes, it is. Let me think again. I knew that I had all the fuel costs in there. Let me actually have a look at the because I'm not sure if I remember this correctly. So let me have a look if I can see it right away. It should be, so this is all the code that is necessary to do this one table.
Jesus Christ.
So here we are. Um, so it says rounded because we are not using the numbers from Chipto, as I said. We are rounding those to the full number, and and yeah. So scanning is food price, and it's also minus the cargo. Sometimes it look, yes, and it's also looking at the warp.
Yeah, it's
But I
accounted for a
remember.
lot of things.
No,
Yeah.
what I did here is actually I didn't send it out from CSS. That would be a very long distance, and you couldn't do that with warp. So what I did is I assumed that you always send it out from a starbase, and you will go double the max warp distance, and then it says times 4 because you always need it on the way back. So it's assuming if you have a ship like the Ohm, for example. I just know this one out of my head. With a warp distance of 10.2, it would mean that you're scanning 20.4 AUs away, and you need to travel that distance uh, 2 times, yeah, on your way to the scanning and back. So it's not assuming that you're sending everything out from the CSS.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's pretty
important
much
to point that out.
you're coming from a medium risk zone into a high risk zone. So you'll have a
Yes,
forward base
right,
setup.
right, right. Yeah, and you're right. This is actually, I could do this more, but I mean, it's already negative.
Yeah, no,
So
no, no, not for
if we
20.
would also, but as the reason is I started with this table and I did it like that because I think for a medium player, they will send out their scanning fleets from a starbase that is close to the high risk zone. But you're right, for a small player. I should have assumed that they are sending out from CSS, and maybe they are sending then out with subwarp instead of warp. Yeah, that is correct. Yeah.
Awesome.
But I don't think that it would actually turn this into a profit. I mean, we are using then subwarp to get there, but the distance is much longer, so I don't think that this will turn this into a profit.
Not
Yeah.
to mention the time using subwarp to get there would have
Yeah, right. So
ROI.
yeah, right. So you will find way less SDUs because you're spending, yeah, 70% of your time subwarping around and not scanning. Right.
Awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
The time is 31. I'm going to just ask summarizing questions just so I understand myself, and someone else can just
Yeah.
go to timestamp 31 and then understand. So,
Okay,
clarifying
great.
small player scanning, if you have, for example, a VWAP value of less than 500, it's practically unprofitable for you to be scanning right now. Is that correct?
I mean, if you have VWAP 500, then you're getting returns here, in with that assumption that you're sending out from a starbase close to a high risk zone. Then you're getting you see 40 to 50%. If you're investing between 500 and 800 is the most expensive fleet here with Metex. Yeah, then you get a decent reward, I would say. We will find game loops that are more profitable than that later on, but it's possible. Yeah, for the $500 budget, I would say it's possible. For the $200 budget, it's simply not possible. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to clarify the difference between the scanning itself versus going to mine the hydrogen. So the
Yeah.
scan NP and like the mine ROI on the right hand side. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's say for one there, Fimble bias here for a 100 SDU fleet, which is an average VWAP of 1.1k, give or take. Um, so
Yeah,
the
it's actually the fleet value, not the VWAP. So that
ah
is the market price. Yeah.
oh yeah, sorry,
So
the
it's
market
10,
price.
10 ERP, and the price is 104.75. Yeah.
Awesome. So that will give you a return if you're scanning from a medium risk zone into high risk, about a 78% return.
Yeah. Yeah. 74 here. Yeah.
Oh,
This one.
74. Yep. And so that's
Yeah,
just scanning.
exactly.
Now, if you go that to do hydrogen, for example, then your return is about 38%.
Right. Exactly.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay. So in this case,
With that
obviously,
same fleet.
yeah, same
Yeah.
fleet.
With that same fleet. And not assuming that you are crafting the hydrogen into fuel or something. It's just using the same fleet, mining hydrogen and selling the hydrogen to the marketplace. Yeah, right.
That's good. That's good. That's like really good, solid numbers that you're able to make a decision. So obviously, you get nearly double the amount just to go scan with your EIP rather than mining hydrogen.
Right, right. And but as you and I'm glad you pointed that out. Um, um, we have fuel costs included in here, but not back to the CSS. But you wouldn't do that all the way. So yeah, like every hour. So you would probably just collect an amount of SDUs on your Starbase, and then from time to time you're sending them all back to the CSS. So that will cost you a little bit,
Yeah.
but no way it can cost you the difference. So the difference here is 260 Atlas per day. So that is not the price, of course, to send those SDUs back to CSS and to sell them. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. You got
So
to haul everything from medium risk zone back to CSS to
right,
sell it. So
right,
that's not calculated
exactly.
there. Yeah, but it's not that
Exactly.
much compared if you have rating.
Yeah, right, right. Yeah. So
Great
scanning
numbers.
is for yeah, maybe let's call it a big small player or medium player already is profitable and more profitable, I would say in general, as mining hydrogen. Yeah. Um, yeah. But again, we have some problems, let's call it like that, for the small player with the Solana transaction fees, and that's why this is not. It's way too much transactions for the small fleet. Yeah, so that is a problem here.
Could I request? I don't know if it's possible. I don't know if you take requests at all, but pardon my stupidity. For
Sure,
the
go ahead.
for the mine ROI, if that's mining hydrogen, can there be another calculation to um, calculate it to selling fuel? Like you're going to craft it and then sell the fuel, because
Yes,
that's what
we
everyone is doing. Hydrogen is actually.
right, right. But actually, if we come to crafting, I would argue against it, looking at it like that, because I would always look at this that the comparison to scanning is just mining raw material, and then you are making a second decision, and that is if you should craft hydrogen to fuel, because maybe it is way better to sell the hydrogen and use your crafters to craft something else that you buy on the marketplace.
Or use your
So
crafters
I
to
would,
earn mine more hydrogen.
yeah, or maybe like that, yeah. So I would always want to separate the decisions and not put them together and look at the total return, but yeah, compare very small game loops and separate the crafting from the mining.
Awesome, thank you, man.
Yeah, yeah, sure. Okay, let's go to mining then. So here the idea is similar but not exactly the same. So what we did here is now we are calculating with a fixed budget. We haven't done that for scanning because, as I said, we looked at fleets to compare them that are finding the same amount of SDUs. Here in this case, we are yeah, normalizing the data in that way that we are using the same budget for every mining fleet here. And to make the numbers comparable, so we have the same investment for all those fleets now, and we can then actually compare the returns and the results. So a little bit different, but pretty similar. So we also have the groups, small players, 200, 500, and then I did additional numbers for 1,000, 5,000, and even 10,000, I think, yeah, just to have some comparable numbers here. And okay, let's have a look. So what we are doing here, so again, the same is true that we are always looking on the return on investment and not on the profit margin. So because of that, the top ships on this list are not the ships that you would maybe expect them to be. And again, here another rule for this first table was the ship has to be below 200. Yeah, because you see it here. So we really wanted to make it comparable. So not, for example, say, okay, this is only buying you one lobby. And if you want to compare it with an herb, then your $200 budget is just buying you one herb. And then we're comparing an investment of almost 200 with 100, yeah, or 105. So because of that, we just made it comparable. So we are able to buy decimals of ships, so that we can really compare the same budget for each fleet. Yeah. And we see the number of fleets is just one fleet for each of the ships, and you see the number of ships that are in this fleet. And we see the resource that we're mining. We see richness and hardness, because if we go to the, if we scroll in this table, then you will find all the different resources in this table. So this is already ranked by the best one are on top, and it's assuming that if you are mining hydrogen, which are the first ones here, then it's taking the whole $200 and invest it into lobbies. If you're mining, for example, copper ore, then it will buy one lobby for transport, and the rest is invested in calico scuds here in this example, yeah, to make it comparable, yeah. And it will, yeah, so we are seeing here the richness of the asteroid where you're mining and the hardness of the resource. You can see the mining rate, which is already the modified mining rate by the hardness and richness. And then we see the gross profit, which is atlas per day. You see the ammunition, which is also atlas per day that you spent with this fleet. So this one, or let's go to the first page, maybe back again. So here we have a fleet of 6.6 lobbies, and they are making a gross profit of 124. And but they are not very efficient, the lobby, for mining. So they spend 47 atlas a day on ammunition. They spend 17 atlas a day on food. They spend 2% atlas on fuel, which is in this case just the exit from the starbase when you end mining. You don't have any fuel costs. You don't own an additional lobby for transport because we're mining at the CSS, hydrogen at the CSS. But you have Solana transaction fees for the mining. And you see again what is happening here. So that's quite a lot if you compare it to what you're spending on ammunition, on food, on fuel. The assumption that we're making here is that you're paying 0 point and then 506 Solana as a fee. That is what I saw on the last days for a normal transaction going through, what you have to pay. And yeah, so it's adding up, because we are looking at if we're mining at Central Space Station, then we have to stop mining. We have to dock the fleet. We have to unload the resources. We have to load, and this is a worst case scenario. We are assuming that we load ammunition and food and fuel all the time, which is normally not necessary because we have something left, at least not ammunition maybe, but we have normally we have food fuel left. And but if we looking at all these transactions, and then we are undocking the fleet again, and we start mining. So I think those were 8 transactions, if I remember correctly. So every time that the fleet is actually stopping mining and unload and reload, it has to do 8 transactions. And because of that, the best fleets for a small player are not ships that are actually pretty fast in mining, because they would produce too much transactions. They have good mining rates then, but that would result in the fleet only mining for, let's say, for example, 10 minutes. And if you use automation, or 15 minutes, and then every 15 minutes, you're doing 8 Solana transactions. So you see this, for example, if you compare the Lobby to the ERP, then the ERP is paying more than double the amount what the Lobby is paying, and yeah, so and it's but the Lobby is not earning the same amount as the fleet of ERPs. Of course, there are just 1.9 ERPs in this fleet, but still, in total, the Lobby fleet is a little bit better. But what we also see here is if we go all the way to the right, then we actually see again for this budget, there is no possible fleet that is earning a net profit with mining hydrogen for this budget. So that,
No.
yeah, right. So that, yeah, you said Lamports and the dollar value. Yeah, great. Yeah. Yeah, so that was actually quite. I wouldn't have expected that. Put it like that. Yeah, I thought mining hydrogen should be, because you're not doing a lot of transaction. You're not even using cargo and moving stuff around. You're just at the CSS. But there's no way to turn this profitable with a budget of 200 right now, because we are simply paying too much Solana transaction fees. And if we go to other resources, for example, this one is the best in line. Use the Calico Scut for iron ore. And I mean, those numbers are a little bit extreme, because the Calico Scut is actually a super expensive ship for the size of the ship. So the reason it is way up on this list is because it's so expensive. It's not producing as much loss as the others. So that is the reason. So in actually, it doesn't make sense to look at a lot of details here, because yeah, the result is important. That again, for this budget, there's no way to turn this into a profit. So let's look at the next one. $500. This way, all ships up until $500 are possible to invest, and so we have the tip at the front, even considering that the tip is maybe also a pretty expensive ship. Of course, it's the best, or not the best, but the miner ships are the best in class regarding the mining data. But it's pretty expensive, but still on this list, it's the best ship. And we see that we are doing a return of 30% with this ship. So and the Lobby is second again, and the Maxhawk. So again, you see the freight ships are actually best in class, because again, the same reason, they are not producing a lot of Solana transactions, and that is the most important factor for small players. Yeah. And because of that, the Lobby is also earning you 21% in comparison to the tip 30% on your invested capital. Both the budget is 500. So you have in this one fleet, you have 1.5 tips and 16.5 Lobbies. Yeah. So this is better. Still not great, maybe, for an annual return. Yeah. But at least it's profitable. So if you really need certain resources, actually hydrogen, because if we scroll down, we have to go to the second page. So again, iron ore. And there's also a reason why we see iron ore and copper ore being quite good in this category, because again, because of the hardness, you're not mining so fast. And that means, again, less transactions. So for the group, $200, $500, that is most important. The fewer transactions that you are producing, the better. Yeah. So the best resource after hydrogen is actually iron ore and then also copper ore because of its hardness, actually. Yeah. And but we see we are already in the negative. So even for this group, $500, there is no other resource than hydrogen because we are already turning negative here with some ships that are still on the Central Space Station, but they turn into a loss already. Yeah. So that was all. Also a little bit disappointed. Also to me, I thought that we have more possibilities in this budget to go for different resources, and that it will be actually profitable to go somewhere else and not mine on the CSS. But it looks like it's not. Yeah. So move on because that we have time for the good things. So mining is for the 1,000 budget. So now let's look at the return right away, and we see 73%. So now I would say this is actually quite good. Even the second place, which is it again? No, not the Lobby anymore. Now the Feist and Erb are better than the Lobby, and the Maxhawk is somewhere down the list. Yeah. So now the budget is enough to actually have better mining ships. Yeah, because the budget is higher, so the Solana transactions, the fees are not cutting in your revenue so much anymore. Yeah, so that is why the Lobby and the Maxoc are walking down the list now, and actually better mining ships are going up the list now. Yeah, but a huge difference. Oh, here I looked at profit margin. So return on investment is actually pretty close. Yeah, 48% to 45% compared the tip to the two for Feist. And by the way, I saw this that it was loading $90 for the Feist. That is actually it was a trade that was done, I think, yesterday. And but it's actually not the price that you are able to trade that ship. I think you can trade the ship at 105, the ERP, but the Feist at 90, I think, is not possible. This looked to me, I looked at the transaction, and it looked to me like somebody was doing a wash trade for some reason with $90. I don't know why, but there was no reason. The one wallet could have sold the Feist for around 100 at that time and not 90. So I think this number is a little bit low, and that is why the Feist is so way up there. But you see the ERP is similar, and that is a tradable price, and also the Lobby. Yeah. Okay. So just in comparison, what is a medium player? Yeah, maybe already large with 5,000. Oh, and I see I saw this before I was starting, so I have to have a look at those tables because they are not loading any of the results here. So yeah, okay. It's also not our focus right now, but I will look at those tables and correct what's happening here so that we can look at the numbers now. Okay, that is everything I have to say for mining. Zelax is saying 110 for the Tufa. Yeah, that is much more. I think that makes sense. Yeah. So the 90 was way too low. Yeah, exactly. So any questions? Leon, maybe. Do
Yeah,
you have
sorry,
any?
man. No,
Yes,
no,
no, go ahead.
yeah, no questions, but I do want to reaffirm everything we've kind of talked about at minutes
Yeah,
54. So basically, if you are mining hydrogen, and I'm going to go back up to
yeah,
small player 200 and small player
yeah.
500, you
Here
are
we are, 200.
basically, yeah, if you're basically money if you have $200 worth of current mining ships value.
Yes,
Wow.
exactly. So yeah. That's pretty yeah. It's yeah, interesting to put it like that. Yeah, I mean, um, you could ask, is who's to blame again? Yeah, because right away we're asking why is this that way? I think the reason is, of course, and we talked about it, are the Solana transaction fees. Yeah,
Yeah.
so we have been in a way worse place a few weeks ago, but still this is not good. And if we're talking about game design, and which is and if we're talking about Chris and the numbers they are looking at, then of course they are looking at what does a player spend on ammunition, food, and fuel, and does this make sense? But also, I think in the end, and they are, I think, quite aware of this. Yeah, they also have to look at the transaction fees, and that the mining is actually not a profitable game loop for a small player with a 200 budget. And I thought it would be. Yeah, because you're not doing much. You're just sitting at the CSS mining hydrogen. I think a lot of players are actually doing that with that budget. And that is probably the reason why we saw on the dashboard from Steven that a
A
lot
lot of
of players are
negatives.
actually running on a loss, and the median player is just break even. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
because it's quite easy to miss this because you think you're making a profit just by being at the CSS, but they don't notice their Solana balance going down. Right? And I've had
right,
to top up my Solana balance. I'm like, oh, I'm less than one now. I used to be a little bit higher. So the
right,
whole takeaway of all of this is for me is if you're a small player, Solana transaction fee is what's going to be very
right.
careful.
Yeah, yeah. And that is exactly what we are seeing here with the data. Yeah. And it's and at first you don't realize it because you're seeing I'm getting resources. I'm the value of the resources that I'm getting is higher than what I'm paying for the resources, for the ammunition, for the food and fuel. So I'm making progress. Yeah, it looks like it. But if you're really taking into account what you're paying, as you said, on your wallet also for the Solana transactions, then it is actually your total wealth is actually going down. Yeah.
I would actually
So
say it's underestimated in my opinion because of priority fees. Because a lot of people would be setting their
yeah,
priority fees more than the average just to make sure they get through. I
yeah,
actually think
right.
it's less ROI, even more negative.
Yeah, and if we see times of congestion that we saw, and the priority fees and are really spiking, then this would be even worse. Yeah. So
Shit, man.
exactly.
I think maybe people don't use
And
this info.
yeah, I think, and yeah, again, as I said, I was really focusing now on, because if you are looking for large players, then actually if you're paying 66 Atlas a day for your Solana transactions, for doing hundreds of transactions, is actually not a problem at all, because it's compared to the size of your fleet and what you're earning in resources. This is a very small percentage, but unfortunately, we can't see the numbers now for those 5,000 and 10,000, because you would see that it's actually super low than the percentage. Then you're actually playing a huge amount of or a huge percentage of your costs is then ammunition, food, and fuel. Yeah, for those budgets. Yeah, it's not the Solana transaction fees. Yeah,
Yeah. Um,
and
Another takeaway would be just to make sure you fully stack your fleets to have that 145, power of your fleet, so that you can capitalize on having to pay less transaction.
Yeah, exactly. But in this case, we were very strict and said, okay, what are we able to
200.
do on a $200 budget? And we can't fill up the fleet. Yeah, it's just six Blobies and five Maxhawks and things like that. Yeah. So yeah, but you're right. Yeah, of course, it would be advisable that you're filling up as so have the least amount of fleets as possible. But again, that's not a problem for a small player, yeah, because he will just buy a few ships and put them in one fleet, and then he goes, and he will first not realize maybe that he's losing more on the Solana side, right?
Moving on to the, mining 500. So it seems still there's not very high profitability. Max is 30% with some imps. Um, I would
Yeah,
think mining hydrogen would be a lot more, especially with imps. That's also surprising to me and not that worth it.
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, in general, I would agree. I mean, you're earning 30%, but if you look at, I mean, you're earning your net profit is 110 Atlas a day. So what is this? 4 USD, right? No, should be less. Is it 40 cents? Wait a minute. 100 is 44 USD, right? Oh, I'm showing that I'm bad at math in calculating in the app. So
40 cents. 40 cents.
40 cents. Yeah, right. So that's actually also not very much, yeah. But I mean, it is still a
It's
limited
something.
budget, yeah. So yeah, but I agree, yeah, 30%. It's your best option. So if you need some resources, then the tip is actually your best option in with this budget. But it's not a great return. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So let's look at the better returns, shall we? Or are there additional questions?
And we got one
Let me
from
see.
Gibbo Bear. Why are the
Yeah,
quantities of the ships for hydrogen higher than other regions?
the quantity of ships um, higher than for other resources. Um, yeah, because in the case of hydrogen at the CSS, we are assuming that you're spending the whole 500 budget just on mining ships. And if you're going somewhere else, then we are for this budget for $500. I think if I knew it, we are buying two lobbies for cargo. So that is the reason why when we are mining hydrogen at CSS, we are able to buy 13.6 Maxhawks in the screenshot that he was posting here. And for all the other resources, it's just 10.3 because we have to buy cargo ships to get the resources back to CSS. That is the reason. Okay, then let's move on. Um, so crafting. So the idea is similar. We have other obstacles here, but the idea is similar. So we have a budget. It's written a little bit different here. So we have again a budget of 200, but we are using 10 USD to buy the ingredients for crafting. So we are now only looking at crafting. So this is not combining, as I said at the beginning, this is not combining mining with crafting. So this is assuming we are buying the ingredients for the craft on the marketplace, and then we use our budget to buy crew. So in right now that is extra small ships, and that is all we need because we are doing everything at the CSS. We don't need cargo ships, and then we are selling the crafted item to the marketplace again. Yeah. So yeah, let's first look at the columns, and then let's talk about one very important thing when it comes to crafting. So we see here, for example, aerogel. Budget is total budget 200, 190 on XXS ships. We are able to buy 25. I think I always use the price of the airbike for this. And the crafting time is 2 seconds for aerogel. And the price on the marketplace is 0.0077. The price of the ingredients that we need is, yeah, you can read it, 0.0056, so a little bit less. With 25 crew, we are able to do with all the resources that we are buying with our $10, we are able to do 1.87 crafts per day. And we are getting a net profit of 1,000 Atlas. So that is a total different ROI, but there are also some caveats to this. So we have to talk about this. But just to complete this, so we see the net profit Atlas per day, we see the return on investment, and we see the net profit per crew, because what we are comparing here is actually crew, not capital. So you will see, and you know this when you're doing crafting manually, when you're changing the amount that you want to craft, then of course you're not crafting faster, because they will not work faster because there's more to craft. The only thing that you're doing is that you get a longer total crafting duration. Yeah. So the only way to speed up the craft is actually by adding additional crew. And again, the amount that you're entering is just has an impact on when the craft will be done. So because of that, we are not comparing capital, because the bottleneck is actually crew. So it's interesting if we compare different things. For example, we have another game loop that is using crew after this. And to compare it, we are looking at the net profit per crew. So that is quite interesting. So what we have to keep in mind is, and that is quite important, is the liquidity on the marketplace is still very low. So we had this a few weeks ago when we were talking about a few opportunities on the marketplace. And on the next day, I think it was for mining, we were talking about nitrogen and silica. And then on the next day, the price went down by 50% or something, yeah, because some people were maybe doing what we talked about. So you have to keep in mind that the liquidity for some of these is pretty low. So that is important. This is really only possible for small players, and you should always work with limit orders in the marketplace, because otherwise, if you just market buy what you need to craft aerogel, I think it's what is it, crystal lattice and is it, no, I don't know it out of my head. But crystal lattice and silica, I think, yeah, and so you're moving the prices too much, yeah. So but there are some here that are actually quite good. For example, fuel is possible. or has at least higher volumes. We also see right now, no, I think titanium is also quite low. I mean, we have it here on our dashboard. So let's simply look at the general market data, and that is the wrong dashboard. So I have to use the same that we're on. So here we go. Yeah. So here on the right side, so we are on the tab Sage Overview. And the first one we can see here, the trading volumes. And on the right side, we can see it's sorted by volume. And you see that the dollar volume is, fuel was yesterday $340. Ammunition 314, and copper ore 126. So and you see it's going down. So if we go on the second page here, aerogel, for example, there was no trading volume yesterday. So it's still on top of our list, but there was no trading volume. So you really have to be careful and set limits there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually
But
really
nevertheless,
important, because if you can't sell your item that you crafted, then you can't
yes,
realize an ROI, can't
yes,
compound. So no, you
exactly. Yeah, yeah. So exactly. So, but I was not. So you have to do that research, because I was not looking or excluding, because this can change, excluding things with low volume. And when I'm talking about it, I could actually maybe insert a column here that is showing the trading volume on the marketplace, so you get an idea, and you don't always have to jump between two tables here. Yeah. But but that is actually the idea. And what is pretty important, if you look at this table, and now I'm jumping again. So because if we go to crafting, then you see this table, and we also have it on the on the overview here. Here it is. So let's look at crafting. It's a little bit bigger here. Yeah. So so here, this is not ranked. So we can rank this by the crafting discount in percent. So if we look at this table, it would say us, okay, frameworks is the best, actually the best discount. So the frameworks are traded at 0.03, and the ingredients are traded at 0.0016. So that is the best discount that you're getting, and the best percentage gain then for crafting. And that's why the recommendation is crafting. So you might ask, why is frameworks not on top of the list here again for the small player if we look at crafting? Because it's not. We can scroll down, and here it is. So we have the same numbers, but it's not the best option, because this the first table, I don't go back all the time now. The first table is actually just looking at the percentage gain from the ingredients to the crafted item. Here we are actually looking at the time that the craft takes or needs to do the craft. So it's actually looking at how many crafters you need, how much time does it take, so how many crafts can you do in one day. And you see, because frameworks is so high with the time, you're just able to do 0.04 crafts a day. So that is really low. So in the end, what you're earning is just 84 Atlas a day, because it takes so much time to do frameworks. So even if it's the highest percentage in gain, it's not the best idea to craft, because it takes a very long time. So you have a higher throughput with some other assets that are not giving you as high as a percentage, but you can do a lot more crafts per day. For example, also titanium here, and therefore in total you're earning more per day. So that is actually pretty essential to this table, and I thought this was also pretty interesting. Because before that, we were always looking at what is the highest crafting return as a percentage from the money you put in. But as I said, when we're actually doing the crafting, it's not essential how much you put in. It is essential how much ships you have and the time that it actually needs to do the craft. Yeah.
And Victor, I want to
So
clarify it's got the
yeah,
Atlas fee price to craft as well as a subtraction somewhere in there. Is that correct?
yeah, we have included it. It's not showing on the table because I thought in this case it
Yeah.
would be too much numbers here. But and this table is not so much focusing on what are the different
Yep. Yep.
things
Criterias
that
and
you're
everything.
paying. Yeah, and also I think we even have not included Solana transaction fees in this case because you're not doing a lot of transactions. I would actually say, I mean, not financial advice, but if you go into crafting, then you can totally do just one craft a day, or maybe even let it run for 2 or 3 days. Yeah. I mean, longer than that, maybe then you're having some risk about market prices, so the prices could change. If the market moves very fast, then what was a profit a few days ago could be something else. So I wouldn't craft for let's put it like 2 weeks and then be done, because it doesn't make a huge difference if we're doing one transaction a day or one transaction every week or something. The huge difference here is that you are just doing, and it's not one transaction, of course, it's put your ingredients in, then stop the craft. So it's a little bit more. But compared with mining and scanning, where you're doing hundreds transactions a day,
Yeah.
yeah.
Lower.
So this is really a low transaction game loop, and that is actually what we found out with the first few game loops, that for the small player, the number of transaction, that is the important factor that is killing the profit here. Yeah. So because of that, crafting is a possibility. The downside to it, you really have to look at where liquidity is. I hope that we see higher liquidity. I thought for myself, I would actually maybe even offer some liquidity here and there, because when prices would be moving, because some people are more doing just crafting and not mining in front of it, but just crafting, so buying it on the marketplace, then it could also be profitable for someone who is able to mine to actually sell those resources to someone else who's crafting. So I really hope that we see higher liquidity, and so that small players are able to do this and find enough liquidity to buy those ingredients and then to sell the crafted items. Yeah, that would be perfect. And and to be more on the sure side, pick, because the rewards are pretty high, and so pick something where you see good volume, or maybe also where you so right now, for example, we don't have a utility for particle accelerator. I think they are needed when we upgrade starbases to is it tier 4 and above? I think so. So much higher than now. So yeah, you should look at things that are actually where we have a demand for it on the market. Yeah. So also superconductor, I think no demand right now, and strange emitter also. But titanium is interesting because it's used for the ships, for the that are new now to craft the Max Hawk and the Mamba X. So you need titanium. And yeah, so that is of course interesting. And electromagnet is used for upgrading starbases and also electronics. Yeah. Okay. And if we look at crafting 500, I just put it here, we see actually the same or roughly the same numbers because it's actually how do you say it's scaling in the same way because the only reason there's a difference now we are using 480 for your crew and 20 for the ingredients. If you change that, then the ROI changes a little bit, but everything else is just scaling. So in other words, there's no benefit for a larger player or for a whale in this game loop. Yeah, it's as profitable for a small player as it is for a large player. Only difference, of course, if he's doing it with a lot more crew, then of course it will be a much higher profit, but the return is exactly the same. So that's also quite interesting about that game loop. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Are there any questions about crafting? I don't see any questions in the chat right now.
No questions for me per se, but on my mind is right away is yes, the liquidity is the biggest issue. So I would say fuel
Yes.
is the best bet there, especially if you compound.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And I was also doing this myself a little bit. So I'm also not used to it using the marketplace so much. And maybe that is the problem with most of the players. And that is why we don't see much liquidity there. But I really hope that we use the marketplace more and that we find more liquidity. And because, yeah, I think that would be beneficial to everyone. And yeah, and very beneficial here to small players if they are really able to do this game loop. That is doable in theory here, and yeah, to really make it, yeah, you have to look at liquidity. That is super important. Correct.
Because you can get an ROI of 700, 600, but if your limit orders don't fill for the resources you need because
Right.
liquidity, you're not gonna get anything back, sell anything
Right.
back. So
Yeah.
yeah, if you can't get
Right. 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 Still, I mean, at least we're earning something here. Maybe we have to wait a few days till our orders is filled and our crew then can start crafting or do something because we're waiting for a good price. But at least we're not losing money. Yeah, I mean, with mining and scanning for the really small player budget, we're actually losing money. So this is a profitable game loop, and yes, there are limitations, but if we then can compound the rewards we're earning here, then you should really see progress here. Yeah. Even if we are not able to be busy with our fleets all the time or something, like we are if we are mining and automate that mining. Yeah. So yeah, exactly. Um, fractionalize liquidity. Yeah, exactly. That is also what I'm thinking. Yeah. So of course there are a lot of good things. So maybe for everyone. So Funcracker is saying we may get local markets relatively soon, but which would fractionalize liquidity. So yeah, I think general local markets are quite good because yeah, it changes the transport. We still have to transport, but it changes. So we have different prices on different markets. That's in general very interesting. But we don't, even with this centralized marketplace that we have right now at the CSS, and not at the CSS, at just all three CSS together, yeah, one marketplace. we still don't see enough liquidity. Yeah, so that would also be the downside for local markets. Yeah, we just need more liquidity. Yeah, that is really important.
It's low already. Then we're going to divide it by 3, and then by like how many other star bases per faction.
Right,
It's super
right,
super low.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So that is the problem, and maybe that is also a reason why the team is waiting a little bit with that. Yeah. But I don't know. Only speculating here. So West is asking, what crafting speed are these graphs compared to? The 50% or the full crafting speed? So this is always the full crafting speed. And of course, you can argue with the recent change that the CSS is now always going at 50%. So at least if you have something to craft, um, as a small player, and we are assuming, of course, that a small player is not paying for the upkeep at the CSS, and or just the amounts that are good for him. Yeah, and yeah, so that would be good that it would still continue with 50%, and yeah, but it's not changing it a lot. I mean, I hope that the CSS should really run at 100% most of the time. Yeah, so maybe let it be like 80%, just a vague guess. And at 20%, it's running at 50%, so that makes it 90% in total. So I think that should be fine then. Yeah. Hopefully, but we don't know. Yeah. Okay, so let's look at the one of the last. It's not the last. It's but upgrading starbases. So you might think at first, okay, this is just a game loop for large players, but I think. Oh, I think I have to refresh or something went wrong again with the table. Let me have a look.
You see ROI in there. That's really fucking.
Yeah. And it also has its okay. This hasn't changed, so we still have the problem with 5,000. But let's go to crafting and upgrading starbases. Yeah, it's still showing pretty high numbers here, so we have to check that if this is. But I think it should be. I checked it. Yeah, I think that was correct. Okay, so let's have a look. So there is a good thing here and a bad thing if we compare this to crafting, because those two game loops are pretty similar. We are using extra small ships as crew, and we are just using those ships. And in this case now, we also need cargo because we're not able to upgrade the CSS. So we have to go to other starbases. And the good thing is we don't have the problem that we have with crafting that we were talking about the last 10 minutes regarding liquidity. Because, I mean, we still have to buy things, but we have exit liquidity in unlimited amounts, let's call it like that, because we're actually redeeming LP into Atlas. So therefore, we don't have that exit liquidity problem. Yeah, but we get another problem, and that would be that this is not possible all the time. So this is really, in comparison to the general crafting, this is a game loop that is actually waiting for an opportunity. And that is exactly what larger players and the whales, of course, and there have been a lot of discussions about that. But I think it is actually also a pretty good game loop for a small player. And so if you are a small player and thought, okay, LP and the upgrading of starbases is not for me, then I would say maybe rethink this a little bit. And because I think it's actually quite interesting. So let's have a look at the table. So that the SDU upgrade is actually on top. That is very interesting, and I wasn't expecting that. But again, the same logic is true here. The SDU update is just takes 1 second for one SDU. So if you have 21 extra small chips, then you can do 21 SDUs in 1 second. So that is pretty much if you compare it to the other resources where it takes much longer time. Yeah, but of course the profit is much lower, and so the general profit for each SDU is much lower as a percentage. But I think I really have to check this one again. So it's saying it's doing 1.7 million crafts per day. So I think that is, yeah, because it's counting with the upgrade time of 1 second, and we're just using a budget of $10. And because it's so fast, it will do so many crafts. But I think I will have to take a closer look if this is really correct. So I would make the SDUs a little bit in brackets. I think it could turn out like that, but yeah, let's put it in brackets for now. I think the other things are maybe more or should be better. So the next two ones are not doable right now. So radiation absorber and particle accelerator only come with a higher tiers. So that's not possible right now. So we see the best in line is actually field stabilizers. And the same logic is true as we showed earlier. And let me now, for just one time, jump back to that other table now on overview, and we look on the upgrade profitability. So here you see that, for example, frameworks are pretty good with 100%. And you could argue, why all the fuss about field stabilizers that are also just giving you 100%? So why are people not doing with the same euphoria frameworks? Why are they concentrating on field stabilizers? Why? Well, the reason is because the price is much higher. So it's, as we said, it's 6 times higher. So the price of, oh no, now it is actually 0.03. So it's almost, yeah, almost 10, but not 5 times, a little bit 5, yeah, 6 times higher. Yeah, okay, it was actually correct. So 6 times higher, and also you have to compare the upgrade times. So and because of that, even that the percentage is identical. If we go back to the to this table down here, then we see upgrading here. Then we see that so the upgrade time here is 24, and for frameworks it's 12. So frameworks are faster, but the price is lower. And as we said, the bottleneck is again crew, not capital. So so therefore crew is much more interesting. And because of that, the return is higher here. So we have 470%, which is, of course, a really high number. And we are looking at field stabilizers now, right? Yeah. But that is a yearly yield. Yeah. And of course, we know this is just, I think the last upgrades for field stabilizers, they were done in 10 hours or sometimes even just 9 or 8 hours. Yeah. So this is nothing you can do the whole year, of course. Yeah. But if you have the possibility to do it, then it's quite profitable, and you probably should do it. Also, maybe field stabilizers is of course extreme, more profitable, but extreme. It could be also, or it is still a very good reward also to do, of course, frameworks. And because there are more possibilities for you to do, and the distance you have to move to those star bases is not too long. I actually wanted to have a look at the map at this moment and give you an idea. So, we're looking at Ooster first. So you see, for example, so you need the right side has to be active and able to do an upgrade. So you can do it on UST4 right now. Let's have a look. There are still frameworks left to do here. So it would be a possibility. UST4 is from CSS. It's just 5.39 away, so it's very fast to get there, and you get a good return on your frameworks, and you don't have to worry about the exit liquidity because you can redeem your LPs. So that is a good possibility. Also, 22, of course, it's a longer distance, almost 15 AUs, but and I think frameworks are done here. Yeah, so this is close to be upgraded to level 2. So only electronics and electromagnets are left. Let's have a look at ONI. So ONI, here is still a little bit time left, and there are frameworks left. So this is from the CSS 10 AU. So also pretty close. Let's have a look at MUD. MUD is MUD 2, but frameworks are done. But you have the possibility to do electronics, power source, electromagnets, and also SDUs. Yeah. But let me have a look at SDUs again. So yeah, but you get the idea. So there are possibilities that are not far away, and but it's always only possible for a day or a few days. In the case of frameworks, it's possible for a few days. In the case of field stabilizers, it's most of the time it's just like 10 hours. So you have to be very active to actually catch it. Frameworks is better because it lasts a few days. Yeah. Okay. So that is actually, let me think. Is there something else? So again, maybe just to compare it. So the downside for crafting is the liquidity. We talked about it. But you're able, if you get the resources at a good price, with a limit order, then you can do it for a long time because the upkeep at the CSS should be at least, let's call it again, 90% of the time you are able to do this. The rewards are pretty high. So that's good. You have to also time your exit and maybe wait. So compounding, as Leon pointed out, Metaverse Explorer is a little bit more difficult, but the rewards are nice. And in comparison, upgrading gives you not as high rewards in comparison. So yeah, pretty similar. Um, and the good thing is you have the unlimited exit liquidity. The bad thing is that you really have to be more active to look at what is happening, what star bases are upgraded, and then jump on that and do it. And we have calculated here, this is a budget of 200, and also assuming that you spend $30 for one lobby to do the transportation and $10 for the budget for the craft materials. Yeah. Okay.
Victor, I've got maybe another weak point for upgrading our bases.
Yes.
Wouldn't there be a weak point in the actual LP to Atlas redemption? Because a faction could have a really heavy LP day, and then your ROI is severely, or has that been taken into account here?
Yeah, no. What we are doing here is always taking the average from the last 3 days from all factions.
Ah,
So, and we talked about it. So, of course, there are differences. But again, if you step a little bit back, look at the chart here. In general, we are moving in the same
tandem.
direction.
Yeah, yeah.
So I would assume, and of course, there are a lot of critics out there about hopping and things like that. But in the end, what it gets us is it should balance those rewards out. So that is why we are just taking the average from the last 3 days from all three factions to calculate the price that you are able to redeem those LPs. So we have like the LP value in Atlas that is actually coming directly from this average across all three factions. So if you are in general, let's put it like that, if you are in Mud and Ooster, your rewards could be a little bit better. If you are in Oni, they are probably a little bit less. But I wouldn't say that this is changing the whole game loop because it's
It's not
not
too
huge
close.
differences. Yeah, it is close. Yeah. But yeah, but good that you ask. So that is included in here. Yeah.
My God,
Yeah.
amazing stuff, Victor. This is awesome.
Yeah, it took some time. I mean, I really have to check those numbers. So I couldn't remember when I checked it a few days back. I didn't realize that this number is so high, and there are a lot of crafts done here. So I would really like to revisit this a little bit. And but I think in general, the takeaway is really that mining and scanning is producing a lot of transactions per day, and that is the problem for the small player because the rewards are not high enough to compensate your Solana transactions. So by actually doing something that is not doing as many transactions per day, and yeah, and this is also yeah, so there has to be something wrong here, because if we look at this, we have like two crafts per day. So this was exactly the advantage here, that we're not doing a lot of transactions per day. So so I'm pretty sure that this is accurate, and I saw that the numbers are correct. Why this is showing so high numbers, I have no idea. I have to check that. Yeah.
Victor,
But
it's probably what Zelex is saying there. Like, yes, it takes 1 second to upgrade it. So yes, there's high churn, but it
yeah,
doesn't account for taking the SDU to the spot. You can't transport 106 and do 176,000 every second.
yes, actually, yeah, that is also true. Yeah, I mean, we have included the yeah, and that might actually be the problem. Yeah, because we have included the cargo fees. If you are bringing the SDUs to the Starbase to do the upgrade there. But yeah, it looks like that it's not using that limitation, but it thinks like it can do endless crafts.
Yeah.
So I have to check that again. Yeah. But the because the profitability is pretty similar as it was in crafting, I'm assuming, and that is what I realized, that the return on investment should be accurate here. I think it's just the crafts per day for some reason is way too high, and so that is not showing correct numbers here. Because in general, the advantage, and I tried to say it a few times now, is that we are not doing much transactions when we're upgrading or crafting. We are if we are upgrading, for example, field stabilizers, then we are only able to do this for 10 hours. So maybe we will do 3-4 crafts, one a little bit longer, and then we go for shorter time frames to be really sure that that nobody will finish it before the time is up. But again, that will only we would only have to do like a few crafts and to be able to finish that. And that is the huge advantage when it comes to crafting and upgrading for a small player in comparison to mining and scanning, which is really transaction heavy. Yeah. And yeah. And the last, and there's not really a lot to say about the last game loop, so there's no dashboard, but I just want to mention it that we think this is also a game loop, is actually accumulating XP, not LP, but XP. So it is also interesting for a small player if you're really aiming to play Star Atlas for a longer time, then and you want to progress and develop into having more ships then later on in the game, then I think it's also a good idea to look at XP, even if that would include that you're losing out on the game loops. So you're getting XP, for example, for mining and for scanning. So you shouldn't do an automation and run this with a large number of ships all day long, but just to do a few of scanning and mining transactions per day won't cost you a lot, but will get you XP. And again, what I will advise you is to go at the missing manual again. I don't know exactly where it is in that manual. I think there's, of course, at the beginning we can see the content here, and it's somewhere in there. I haven't prepared where to look here. Experience points. Yeah, here it is. So chapter 8. So have a look there, because we will have one short look together, because there are some examples here. We haven't looked at the blockchain because we couldn't find the time yet to actually have those values for all the ships, but Funcracker included some examples here. Oh, not here. Was I looking at something else? Here it is. Scanning license. Yeah, here, successful scan XP. So here, for example, the Visos OPOD will get you XP for every successful scan. You get 200 XP for a failed scan. You will get 2 XP. And I think I don't. And here are the other for the pilot license and for the mining license. Yeah. So here you have some examples with what ships, how many XP you're actually earning when you're doing this this game loop. Yeah.
So Victor, this XP game loop, there's no tangible way to translate that into Atlas profits, right? You can't do
Yeah.
that at
Right.
the moment.
Right.
There's no discount
Exactly.
on transaction cost, or like mining rate increase efficiency, nothing of that. So it's hard to
Yeah.
translate to Atlas.
Yes, that's why we don't have a dashboard here and an ROI or something. This is just the idea. If you plan to stay in the game for a longer time, then it would be wise not to just focus on something that is maybe highly profitable now, because this could turn around in the future. So if it's not costing too much, then I would actually think it could be interesting to do some things that are costing you maybe just a few cents a day, and just to do them to be able to accumulate XP. So you have all the possibilities later on when the game is changing, and it will change a lot of times. So then you are able to do everything if you have enough XP. That is the whole idea here, for that one. Yeah. Okay. I think that's it. So if you have any final questions, then this would be the time. Let me have a look. If we will have time to get back to mining part, you forgot to mention you also can use claim stakes to kind of cover part of your R4. Yes, that is actually a pretty good point. And especially because if you know me, then you know that I'm biased for claim stakes a little bit, even if we don't have them in Starbased now. But it's so it's very good that you mentioned this here, Shogi. So rewards are not spectacular right now. If we go to claim stakes to our dashboard and we go all the way down, so we can see what your return on investment is for claim stakes. But we compared it with mining and we saw around 30% for the best ship actually. Here, if you're using faction claims, that is also not transaction heavy. So yeah, it's a great idea to point this out. So so it is a good alternative, yeah, to get a few resources and to earn a profit and accumulate a few resources that you will need, because it's R4 that you're getting here with the claim stakes. And so that is yeah, really good point to point out. Yeah, exactly.
Christ, I hadn't looked at these in a while. I remember when they were like 100% ROI. Good times.
Yes, they were. Yeah, I mean the reason is the prices for resources went down.
Yeah.
So this is only showing what is this 6 months? Yeah. So we see from April it really went down. So yeah, that is why the ROI went down. The prices for claim stakes are pretty stable. So if your return is going down, but the price is stable, then your return on investment is actually going down, and that is what we see here. And also, the claim stakes were always a little bit lower than the minor ships that we were able to stake in faction claims. Also, that is not possible anymore, but they were always a little bit higher percentage. So yeah, that is also important. Yeah,
It's
but you
still
were right.
great.
I mean,
Like
yeah,
still great percentage, but you miss one return, like one claim window, and then you missed a lot of that percentage ROI.
yes, that is
There's
also
no
true. So
automation.
you have to be a little bit active. Yeah. But the really good thing is that that this is not transaction heavy. So you have to do, I think, in the case of a claim stake tier 1, you have to um, harvest it every 4 days, I think. Is it, or is it 2 days? I think
Like lower.
maybe 2 days. Yeah, I think 2 days, and then it. I think the claim stake tier 2 is already at 4 days, and then it just goes up a little. So yeah, I think it's every 2 days for the tier 1. Yeah. Okay, let me see. Not sure if I missed it. Did you talk about profitability on crafting ships or the game loop and best places to get resources? Yeah, we haven't talked about crafting ships. I would advise you actually to use this tool here. If you go to crafting, so EVI, and then you look at the ships, so at the max hoc, then you can see that is pretty nice to see what is actually the total atlas in USDC. Here, if you buy the raw materials, and then if you compare it to the market price, if it turns out a profit. Of course, this will turn out a profit. I think they are traded at around 38, maybe a little bit higher. So there's not much profit here, but there certainly is here. But again, you need time to do all the crafts, even if you have, like, let's say 20 crew here. then it still takes some time to do all the crafts here. So that is the downside here compared to this one where you get it right away. Yeah. But me personally, it's not used very heavily. I looked at the blockchain and I was actually surprised. I think there were just a couple of Mamba X's craft. So I think it was below 10 or something. And for the max hog, it was a little bit higher, but I think there were 14,400 or something available, and maybe 200 crafted for the max hog, something around that, and just a few for the Mamba X. So, but I think I like it to some degree because you are able to compound a little bit and compound into ships. And I think in general, the Maxhawk is quite an interesting ship, especially if you're a small player. Of course, the lobby is a little bit cheaper, but the Maxhawk is a little bit better. So, therefore, yeah, it's. I think it's a good ship, and the loop is quite good, but not giving high returns at the moment. Or the game loop and best places to get resources. You mean like mining resources, or probably? We talked about mining, of course, a lot. Unfortunately, for a small player, that's not an interesting game loop. So yeah, so we talked about that. People were not ready for these crafts. So, Zelex, you're talking about the not having the resources mined. Yeah, that's also actually also true, because you need titanium to craft the Maxhawk, and you need field stabilizers to craft the Mamba X. And that is probably the reason people want to use their field stabilizers in another way. Like we talked about, if the upgrade to level 2 is done, then you can bring your field stabilizers into play there. And people were not mining any titanium at all. So they just started to set up the mining there, and I think that's a good reason, Selax, why we don't see higher numbers right now. Yeah, Metaverse Explorer Titanium. Yeah. I started Titanium with my smaller fleet, and 1 week I have it. Yeah, it's CSS now. Yeah, exactly. Okay, I think if there's nothing else, I'm good if we have one final question, but if not, then we could also call it a day. Yeah.
Got 3
What do you
minutes.
think?
3 minutes until 2 hours for the whole video. I think let's
Yeah.
do a little sum up. It's
Okay.
if you're a small player, you're gonna get stuffed by transaction fees. Be very
Yes.
careful.
Yeah.
Um,
That's the sum up. Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I'm getting so far. Like that's the
Yeah.
big thing.
100%. Yeah. 100%. Yeah, I would repeat myself, but because we're at the end, I can say it again. So scanning and mining is transaction heavy. The Solana fees is what is killing you here, and really cutting in your earnings. So for the really small player with $200 budget, that is not profitable. If you have 500, then scanning turns profitable, and is a possibility. And mining, I think, was still negative. No, it's also starting to get profitable. So we really see a difference between 200 and 500 already. So that makes a huge difference. And again, the reason is because Solana transaction fees are fixed costs. So everyone is paying the same fee. It's not like all the other costs that are proportional to your size of the fleet and the ships that you're using. So that is the problem here for small players. And because of that, as a small player, you shouldn't do everything. Yeah, absolutely. You shouldn't not do. You should not do everything. So you focus on the things that are doable. Maybe not all the time, but crafting is one possibility. You have to work with limit orders and also on your exit liquidity. But then it's pretty good rewards. And if you buy something cheap, and then you can have your crew be busy for a few days or something with the crafting. And with the upgrading starbases, it's really if you want to have that extra, let's call it a little bit fun gameplay, that you're watching what others are doing and then bringing some of the items that you bought, maybe frameworks, and if you want to do field stabilizers, then do it. Yeah, so it's a little bit more fun, but it's only that window is only open always for a few hours or few days, and so that's not a game loop that you are doing all the time as a small player. Yeah. How does
Amazing.
that sound as a summary?
That sounds
Yeah.
amazing. I'm gonna clip it, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. Leon, thanks for co-hosting this. I would always almost say a little bit. So asking the questions and bringing up important points and doing the recording. Yeah. So
My
thanks a
pleasure,
lot for
man.
that.
My pleasure. Thanks a lot for
Yeah.
the data and the information and the time you put in to put all this. Like everyone in AFIA loves this. So thank you so much, man. Really.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, so the dashboard is already online, so you can have a look at it. And I will probably tomorrow, not today, but I will look at the problems that we're seeing here, and also with the mining with the higher groups, the 10,000 and 5,000. I will have a look at that, and then those tables should be good to give you some ideas what to do and how things are changing when markets or the game is changing. Cool. Okay.